Right now, we need to talk. Join host Alicia Keys and leading experts for Kids, Race, and Unity, a Nick News special. Let's talk about how to talk about race and racial injustice. Let's learn.
Together, we can change the world.
Listen.
We've had enough, show go.
Help.
Look at this sea of humanity.
And heal. Because Black Lives Matter. Kids, Race, and Unity, a Nick News special, starts now.
Hey, I'm Alicia Keys, and welcome to Kids, Race, and Unity, a Nick News special. We're gonna hang out for the next hour and have an important conversation, a conversation about racism and why so many people are upset.
Say it louder!
No justice, no peace!
Many of you might have questions, like why are people marching? Why are people screaming, no justice, no peace?
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
And what can we do about police violence? Just like you, my family is having these hard conversations as well, and we're all trying to figure out how can we learn more? How can we communicate more? And how can we do our part?
Black lives matter!
And Black lives totally matter. That's a true statement.
By now, you've seen the signs and you've heard people say Black Lives Matter. But what exactly does that mean?
I'm 9 years old, and if I get it, you should get it. Black lives should matter as much as white lives.
Yeah.
It's so wrong.
We're not only gonna talk about these challenging topics, but throughout the hour, we're gonna also give you places to go for answers. But first, we're gonna start right here, because it starts in our home with our families. So many kids are feeling so many things right now. I mean, we all are. First, our guests blew us away when we heard their speeches at a rally in California. Take a listen to our future leaders and activists.
I could be George Floyd. I could be Trayvon Martin. I could be Ahmaud Arbery, all killed by unimaginable acts of injustice. It's so sad to live in a world like this. Black lives matter.
In the 1960s, my grandfather was a student activist and civil rights leader. I feel that it is my generation's responsibility to continue his legacy and those who fought for racial equality, justice, and peace. I challenge everyone to pop the bubble with me. Together, we can change the world.
So, Claudia, hello, so good to see you. And Noah, wow, amazing to see you too. How are you both feeling?
I'm feeling great.
I'm doing great too.
Like we said, there was a really powerful protest that you were both a part of. What made you want to take part in this rally?
Living in a predominantly white community, I felt that as one of the only Black people in my community, I felt obligated to speak out against racism.
What changes do you want to see? What do you want to help make happen?
I would love to live in an equal world where everybody is happy and there's no discrimination based on the color of your own skin. I also think that schools don't really teach about racial equality much at all. There's only just a couple maybe classes where you'd maybe learn about it a little bit, but I definitely think it should be taught all year round.
And Noah, what would you like to see? What would you want to help to make happen?
I want to live in a world where I don't have to be afraid just because of the color of my skin. And also, I believe, as she said, that racial equality should be taught year round, because we have done units on slavery, but we haven't really gone very deep into what the slaves experienced and just the fear that they were always in. And I think that we should learn more about that and just racial equality all year round.
Even beyond that, because, Black history didn't start with slavery or enslavement. And so there's so much to discover, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much of our legacy as human beings that we should all be aware of and proud of. And why is it so important for kids to get involved?
Everybody has a voice, but especially kids, sometimes they just look down on us and think, oh, we're younger, we don't really know as much as adults do. But our generation, we have a voice and we can speak out about our feelings and emotions.
I think you're inspiring the adults, to be honest. You're inspiring the adults to not go to sleep, because we all have to be wide awake right now. So thank you so much for being so awake and for being so committed and for being willing to speak out and speak up, because it's not easy and sometimes it's a little scary, but you know, you guys are doing great, and I see you and we see you and we're proud of you, and we can't wait for more, because we're ready for this next generation to get some things right.
I just wanted every kid to know that no matter the color of your skin or the curl of your hair, I just want them to know that they're beautiful inside and you don't have to change who you are.
Yes, 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 yes. And I'm with you. I'm with y'all. 100%. We're all with you. Take care, Noah and Claudia. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
We're about to meet a 13-year-old girl in a few minutes who feels like she doesn't even want to come out of her house because she feels like she might be attacked, as well as a beautiful 12-year-old phenomenon named Keedron. His powerful plea, his beautiful song, his extremely just crystal clear vision of what's happening right now came through so clearly. So take a look.
My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live.
Keedron, how does it feel to know that your song touched so many of us and, you know, brought so many people to tears and to their emotions and just to feeling?
It just feels like I'm just so excited, and I'm thankful and grateful for that I could spread my message out there that Black people can live on Earth and we could enjoy life without being afraid of what's going to happen to us. So I just really want to impact the nations with my gift.
And Madison, I understand that you also have experienced racism.
Yeah, so I was on this app and you're supposed to be able to talk to kids your age, you know, find out where they're from. And I was on like a one call and they just yelled the N-word on me and hang up. At first I was kind of confused. I wasn't really shocked that it happened. I guess everything that happens is kind of desensitizing.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that you had to even experience that. That's ridiculous. But it's crazy. This is this is everyday life and something that we all have to be really aware of, what we're teaching each other and what we're teaching our kids, you know? Joining me are three amazing women who founded the organization Black Lives Matter. Please welcome Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal. Thank you so much for popping in and joining us in this important virtual special. I understand you have some questions for the founders of Black Lives Matter. Let's start with Madison.
How did you get the movement to go so far? I can hardly get my lollipop business out to the rest of the school without teachers knowing, of course.
A lot of this happened because of relationships. We're all a part of a range of networks of people that we know, who know other people, who know other people. And that's literally how this spread.
I think one of the things that we did is we didn't give up. We really stayed connected to what was most urgent, which was the fight for Black people and the fight for Black life. And we were creative and innovative. We wanted to make sure that Black Lives Matter reached more than just people here in the US, but reached people throughout the globe. We wanted it to feel like something that people can use in their conversations inside their schools, inside their organizations, inside their companies, with their families at the dinner table. We wanted Black Lives Matter to be very accessible to people.
How can young people get involved with the movement?
One of the ways you can get involved is look at what's happening in your own location. What organizations exist in your own location? It could be a Black Lives Matter chapter. It could be another local organization that's doing amazing work. It could be an arts organization. The movement isn't just the Black Lives Matter org, although we do share the name with the movement. The movement is so many different organizations that are fighting for Black life or fighting for something that you may be really interested in. And if it does not exist, because sometimes they don't, start something on your own. Start your own organization, start your own collective, meet with your friends, sit with them and say, hey, what do we want to do? What do we want to fight for?
Well, thank you, Madison and Keedron, for being here, for sharing your stories. I know that I'm gonna see you in the future, in the near future, with all the lollipops are gonna be through the roof, and the businesses are gonna be booming, and the music is gonna continue to, really enlighten people. And I can't wait to see, the young adults you become. So thank you for continuing to fight for justice and equality, and I'm very proud of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia, there are some people out there that really still don't get what Black Lives Matter means. Can you explain it for them?
So Black Lives Matter is really fighting for the dignity and humanity of Black communities all over the world. And I think Patrisse and Opal would agree with me that we all want to live in a world where all lives matter. But the reality is that that's not true. And when we look around our communities, we can see whose lives matter and whose don't. So we want to make sure that if we're going to get to all lives mattering, that Black lives have to matter as well.
Opal, 7 years ago, the Black Lives Matter movement was born. Did you start it?
I, along with a number of people who are right now here in this broadcast, but around the world, witnessed a very tragic court case in which George Zimmerman, the man who killed Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old boy in his own neighborhood in Florida, was acquitted for the murder. Like so many people around the globe, I witnessed this trial and I was heartbroken. And so I wanted to remind people around the country, the youth, people within my own family and my community, that we could do something, that this didn't have to be the end of the story, and just to remind each and every one of us that our lives actually do matter.
Some people feel like we shouldn't say Black Lives Matter, and instead we should say all lives matter. But you disagree, and many people do. Can you explain why?
When Alicia came up with the term and the phrase that has now turned into a call to action, for us, Black Lives Matter is incredibly unifying. And when we say all lives matter, we're actually denying what's happening to Black people in particular, not just inside the US, but around the globe. Because as Alicia said earlier, there is no way that all lives matter given what happens to Black people on a daily basis.
Absolutely, and I agree. I think that, Alicia, you both said it beautifully, that until we can acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, we can't move on to the next phase where we can actually look at it as a whole and say all lives matter. Thank you to our incredible, magnificent, fearless founders, Alicia, Opal, and Patrisse. We really appreciate you coming on and talking with us and sharing your wisdom. So we'll see you soon.
Message for you amazing kids right now. First and foremost, we're in amazing times. And in amazing times, I would like to call on amazing people. And you know who those amazing people are? They're you. You're the next generation. And this next generation needs to be filled with love, positivity, inspiration, motivation. And it comes from you guys. So, to kill hate, we love. I'm encouraging all of you to love. That's how we kick the problems of today right in the back of the head. Do it with me by simply loving somebody. Play your part. I love you guys. Bye.
Welcome back to Kids, Race, and Unity, a Nick News special. We're calling this a safe place where kids and adults can talk about the impact of racism and how we can stand together and have each other's back to erase hate. Our next guest, 6 women from Nashville who have created something really remarkable called Teens for Equality. Let's look at what y'all pulled off.
No justice, no peace. No racist, no peace.
Another march in downtown Nashville in the wake of George Floyd's death. This one organized by teenagers and Teens for Equality.
Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! Say her name! Breonna Taylor! Say her name! Breonna Taylor!
We were born in the digital age. We can do anything.
Ladies, really, I saw that piece about how you came together to create Teens for Equality, and I was just like, you see, these are my girls right here. How did you get together to form Teens for Equality?
Well, it started with me and Emma Rose went to a Saturday protest, which was like a week before the one we hosted. And when I got home, I was not willing to just stop there. So I started looking up on Twitter for other flyers for Nashville protests. and I found Z's flyer, and I DM'd her on Twitter. And I was like, hey, how can I do anything to help? And she added me to a group chat, and Michaela and Naya were already in it. We all just started planning together for the 5 days that we had, buying supplies, getting support from other organizations and people, getting donations. And yeah, we're really spontaneous.
Man, imagine if, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had Instagram. Like, it would have been a whole other thing. If they had Twitter, it'd have been a whole other power network. And that's what you're displaying. Did you guys, you're so fearless, you're so confident. Did you feel nervous at all?
I was nervous because I didn't think anyone was gonna come. I was like, no one's gonna come. It'll be like 10 people, and then we'll be in the street protesting with 10 people. But there's nothing wrong with 10 people protesting.
And tell me something. This idea of everybody getting on the floor was really powerful.
It was for George Floyd because he was on his stomach when the police officer had his knee on his neck. So it was we just wanted to honor him in that moment and stay on our stomachs and on our backs and say we couldn't breathe for George Floyd.
Kennedy, have you ever dealt with racism firsthand?
In 6th grade, this white girl, she asked me to hold her purse, so I did. And she said, give me back my purse, you N-word with the hard ER. I was so frustrated because nobody helped. Nobody said anything. It was like everybody was silent, like I didn't matter.
One of my personal biggest takeaways is how important it is that we have to speak up. And that's what you're doing. We can't stand by and watch these things happen. I really believe that we're at a place that tolerating this type of behavior that happened to you with nobody even saying anything or, standing up for, knowing that was not something that should have been said or done to you or George Floyd. The claim of America is that all of us coming from all over different places, no matter where we've come from, how we've ended up here, that we all belong here and deserve to be treated, properly with the proper respect and equality and fairness. And that's what you guys are making sure that you hold the country accountable. You know what I mean? We got to hold each other accountable. So lots of love to Teens for Equality. Thank y'all. Blessings. Keep it up. Really proud of y'all.
Thank you.
It's incredible that young people are out on the front lines, but you don't have to just be at a rally to raise awareness that Black Lives Matter and we should love one another. In fact, a few siblings and their friend couldn't go to the protest that they wanted to, so instead they did something really cool. They set up a snack table in their neighborhood to be kind to strangers and spread the word that Black Lives Matter.
I love this idea. Who came up with it?
We wanted to get involved with the protesting, but our mom said that we were too young to. So then we came back and then we started handing out free snacks.
What has the response been like?
The response has been good. A lot of people are supporting us and honking. And when somebody comes over, we start dancing and TikToking just to move for the movement.
How do you continue the conversation on TikTok, which I think is another super fresh way to do it?
Really, it's just about fun and helping the world.
We do at least a few every protest we do and post them, and then we leave the address in the caption of where we are to get more people to come.
You can raise awareness. We can continue to talk about how Black Lives Matter and how, we're here for each other, even while we're just TikToking. And so it's good. It's all good. I love what y'all are up to. Sending you so much love and keep going.
Bye, Alicia.
Oh, I'm so glad to talk to our next guest here.
We have Charlie, who is 13, and Hank, his brother, who's 11. And we also have Josephine, who is 13. And how are you guys? I'm so happy to see you.
Good. I'm good.
Good.
Josephine, I heard that you had some insensitive racial things said to you. What happened?
One time I was coming back from a trip from Spain with my mom and my sister. And when we got to immigration at the airport in New York, the customs officer asked my mom if she had my sister and I biologically. And it kind of made me mad because, we all look alike, but we all have different skin tones. And I was kind of confused why he would ask the question in the first place. And the other time was I was at school and my classmates would ask me if my mom was my babysitter or if she was my babysitter just because her skin was darker than mine.
Yes, so I also have experienced those experiences where people think that, my mother is the babysitter or the manager. That's what I got a lot when I first started to perform. Oh, are you the manager? And she's like, I'm her mother. Charlie and Hank, let me ask you, you live in Georgia, and have you ever had to stand up against racism?
One time at my old school, people were making fun of kids of different race, and I sometimes had to step in.
Tell me what you did.
Well, whenever they were being cornered in a situation, I would yell, "Hey, so-and-so, come over here," and then we would just talk and get away from the people that were bullying.
I'm really proud of you guys for doing that and not being too afraid. How did you come to terms with that and just know that, no, I don't care what anybody thinks. I know this isn't right and I'm not gonna just watch it.
Well, I've really just been taught that everybody is an equal, to treat others like you want to be treated, and that nobody is below somebody.
Have you ever had an experience where maybe even friends have used just offensive language or offensive ideas or things that just bothered you, and has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, well, sometimes, for example, if they're singing a song or something and it has an offensive word in it, they have a tendency to sing along to it and not really pay attention. One
of the things I've been thinking about with my family and my friends as well is how important it is for us to hold each other accountable, and what I mean by that is speaking up and saying, hey, that's not cool. That really makes me feel uncomfortable. I would like to explain to you why that feels uncomfortable to me, and as my friend, I'd love for you to consider not using that word. Even myself, I want to share that I feel very strongly about the N-word. I ask people to replace the word king for that word. Can you say king? Can you say brother? Even just giving people maybe another language to use. A lot of times people will say, oh, wow, I didn't even realize, or I don't want to do that, or, so I'm just very, very proud of you for speaking up and for figuring out what to say, and to Charlie and Hank too. And thank you for sharing your journey and how you've gotten through that. You guys are so incredible. I can't wait to see how the planet shifts because of the minds that are on the three of you. So thanks for talking with me.
Do you ever wonder how different families talk about racism and unity in their own homes? I know I do. We're gonna find out.
We can only move ahead and fight against racism by doing so hand in hand. Let's not break that chain. Keep the momentum going. Use your voice and don't be silent. You guys are the future.
Studies have shown that racism begins at home. Children as young as 3 can already be biased. With the senseless death of people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others, the demand for justice has shed a light on the ugliness of racism. But if you want to talk to your parents about it, or if you're a mom struggling to find the right words, what do you do? Family therapist Dr. George James is here with me to talk about some of those urgent questions.
I'm so excited about having a conversation about how do we as families, how are we having this conversation? How do we have this conversation? How do we begin it? I myself am having this conversation about race and racism with my family. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old too. Why is racism such a hard topic to talk about within the family?
Alicia, thanks. Racism is it's hard because we have to face some of the most horrific, cruel things that have happened in the history of this country. And we tend to try to push away or stuff negativity. We try to avoid that. And so I think overall, that's one of the issues.
What I'd love to do is bring in our beautiful families that we have here. I'd love to go to the Brown family first. I was wondering for Tabitha and Chance, the death of George Floyd weighs heavily on you, like so many of us. And actually, Chance, you are a police officer, and has that been a difficult conversation to have with your children, or have you noticed there's been questions to you or that you've wanted to clarify things?
It's been very, very stressful. Torn. When I'm watching it as a police officer, there's a part of me that's just disgusted by it, that I'm related to it through profession. And my son has expressed to me, that he wants to be a police officer. So when I see something like that, and then I see what's going on in the world, and that's just one example.
Right.
I'm disgusted by it, and it's kind of hard for me to speak in a positive way or in an encouraging way about my son signing up. I'm concerned about what the future holds for law enforcement for a number of reasons.
We always try to parent our children with honesty and to be open to them. They are 10.5 years apart, but it is a different conversation.
Right.
With my daughter versus my son who just turned 8, it's a little bit of a different conversation.
There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just, we're all learning together and we're all figuring it out together. So thank you so much. That was great. And I'm going to move on to the Red family. Dad, Michael, in the Red family, you and your wife are raising 3 Black sons, and I am as well. What is the talk that you've had with them?
I think the talk came on more with recent events.
Right.
So there's always a plan in place to have that talk when they get to a certain age. But I think now more so with what's happening in the news and media and in our lives, that it came out to just be talking to them about life as a Black man, how you should handle yourself in the street.
So I understand you all sit down as a family and watch the news, seeing the protests and the sadness, or even the triumphs or the unity, just overall. How does it feel sitting down as a family and watching the news?
It makes me feel like a sense of uneasiness because at the same time, we've gotten so used to it at this point. We're hearing about it all the time in the news, and it's getting to us not in a good way, and kind of feel scared and sad to see that our Black community and people out there seeing race as us are dying for no reason at all, and not even committing crimes that they haven't done.
So how can Black families versus non-Black families have this dialogue, and what's the way in?
As parents, we have to face our own anxiety. We get nervous. Should we talk about this? Should we not talk about it? You have to be willing to be honest and open with your children. You have to be willing to be transparent and share your own experiences because they're looking to see if you're authentic.
I think it is also really powerful as a family to be able to communicate together. I think so many times we don't even have somebody to ask those questions to. Like, sometimes like Snapchat is our news source, and it's like, it might be right, it might be wrong. Like, I don't know. And so I think it's very powerful to have the conversations together and just be able to have the tough talks. And Jasmine, Braden is biracial, and you've been having a tough time getting your family to understand why it's so important to talk to Braden about what's been going on. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's really interesting.
Wanting to make change, and I am making sure that I'm having these conversations with my family, and it has been very eye-opening to see that some of them will say, well, all lives matter. It's definitely opened my eyes that I have to start having these conversations and start realizing and telling people why the Black Lives Matter movement is so important to us and why we be vocal. It's not about us not being racist. It's about us being vocal to make change and doing something and finding ways that we can help and can continuously talk about it with our kids, our family members.
And Braden, I also am mixed, and my mother is white and my father is Black. And I was just wondering, what's your thoughts?
Me and my mom have been talking about a lot about the racism and the Black Lives community and how Black people are getting discriminated because of the color of their skin.
Madison, I understand that you've seen firsthand how your Black friends have been treated differently.
I was with a group of my friends who happened to all be Black young men, teenagers, and we were on our way home from a basketball game, and we ended up getting stopped by the police on a corner in our neighborhood. And the first thing that the police seemed to do was they pulled me out of the car and had a conversation with me asking if I was okay, and just were overly concerned for my safety, it seemed like. And it made me very uncomfortable because I felt like they were valuing me over my friends.
Katie, I know that you took your daughter to a Black Lives Matter march about 5 years ago, I think maybe you said, but in your house you're making the shift away from protesting. Tell me what you're thinking and what you're processing.
Well, I would say not necessarily away from protesting completely, but that when the emotionally charged kind of romanticism of protesting wears down, that there's action that follows it. You should be loud and be heard, and you should do all those things. However, it's the hard work that comes after the protest that is really going to change the world.
And so, Dr. James, what do you think is some things you'd like to leave with all of us watching?
Two things I just, really want to highlight is that one, Dr. King's quote of that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, which means that we all have to be involved, regardless of our background, skin color, experiences. But the biggest thing that I want to leave with everybody is that self-care is important. And especially what I've seen for a lot of Black families is the thought that I can't take a day off. I have to be a part of the fight every day. I have to speak up, whether at my job or someplace else. But you need to take care of yourself and your family.
Families, this has been beautiful. I'm so grateful to have this conversation with all of us together. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you to our young ones for sharing your thoughts. They're so valuable, and let's continue to be a shining light. So blessings, and can't wait to see y'all soon.
Next up, what you need to do to take action and make changes.
When I started modeling at age 15, not many people believed in me. That certainly didn't stop me from pursuing my career. I figured out early on that I wouldn't let people's ignorance intimidate me. So by the time I got to age 18, I'd graced the cover of French Vogue, which no other model of color had ever been on before. There will always be tough moments and challenges ahead, but you must strive to overcome them. You have to believe in yourself. You have to always try 110%. And then you have to use your voice to uplift each other and one another. Never give up on your dreams. You will get there, always.
Our next guest, I am personally so excited to talk to. His name is Ibram X. Kendi, and he just released a book called The Anti-Racist Baby. He's an incredible writer, historian, a scholar. How are you, Ibram? It's really, really good to have you today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be talking to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm especially encouraged because we're speaking to so many young people today. I'm very encouraged by their spirits.
Yeah, I mean, these young people are pushing us, aren't they? They have urgency. And if anything, I'm feeling their urgency. And I think all of us adults should be feeling it.
I'm glad, because we need all that. So one of the things I was telling everybody, I've basically been telling everybody that I started a family book club. And when I found your book, I knew it was the right way in because of the tone that it's written in and the conversation that you're having. So let me thank you so much for giving us the way in.
I mean, that's the beauty of books, right? I'm sure it was a beautiful sort of conversation and probably challenging at times, which is a good form of challenging.
I also have a 5-year-old who was not a part of that book club, but you have just recently written The Anti-Racist Baby. And tell me why did you want to write that, and tell me about it?
We oftentimes use books to really start conversations. And so it was really a book that I wrote for my daughter. And she actually sees herself on the cover. She's like, my favorite part of the book is me, the cover. There are other parents too who want to begin having these conversations as early as possible. And I think we should too teach about racism early.
So some kids were taught to be colorblind. What do you think is maybe not necessarily the best of being taught to be colorblind?
Well, first and foremost, because humanity is beautiful. Why shouldn't we encourage young people to see all these colors, to see all this difference, and to appreciate all this difference, and then to see themselves in all this difference. You know, as opposed to imagining that there isn't all this difference, we should be teaching our kids to be grounded, to not think too high of themselves or low of themselves.
So there's some words, a lot of words that kids are hearing. It's important to kind of know what they mean. Firstly is ally. How would you define for them what an ally is?
To be an ally, if you're white, and is to really have the back of people of color as they fight against racism, as you fight against racism, because you see it as your fight too.
What about racial profiling?
Racial profiling is, for instance, when someone, because of the color of your skin, views you, let's say, as a criminal. So, you know, you're walking into a store and you're not doing anything wrong but shopping just like everyone else. And a clerk or a police officer thinks that you're about to steal something, or that you have already stolen something when you have not stolen anything. But they think that because they look at you and see the color of your skin, and they think that people with your skin color rob. There's no particular skin color or racial group or race that specifically steals or does anything wrong or bad or negative. We've been taught that, and we shouldn't believe that.
Right, yes.
What's crazy is every single Black person on earth has the same profile.
Right, like it's impossible. It's not even realistic, but it's a real thing in the world, racial profiling. How about this word, which, back to the book, blew my mind. The word is privilege. Tell us, how would you define privilege?
One of the ways we can understand privilege is if you are that Black person and you walk into a store and somebody racially profiles you and thinks that you are a criminal. Meanwhile, you're a white person who walks into that same store, and because of your color, the color of your skin, because of your privilege, no one would look at you as a criminal. But let's say actually you've decided that you want to rob that store, but no one's following you in the way they would the Black person. So now you're able to easily rob that store because of your privilege, because of your white skin. Nobody thinks that you would steal anything. Meanwhile, a Black person, they're following them around, they're not doing anything.
Really, really interesting. So how do you encourage kids to find their voice when they're experiencing inequality in any way that they might be seeing it, do you think?
I think it's critically important for young people to have the audacity, have the strength to just say the truth and to speak against things that are unfair, no matter what any adult says to you.
That I love the word audacity. That is such a powerful, strong word. And even just right now, you know, I would share with the young people watching, and even with some adults that are watching, you know, maybe a great place to start is trust your instinct, trust your gut. And you know when you're somewhere with somebody and something that's said or something that's done just gives you that thing in your belly and it just doesn't feel right and you know you can't ignore it, and something jumps up and says, oh, I didn't like that, you know, and especially when it has to do with, you know, inequality or a racist slur or a joke that was, you know, someone could say, I was just joking, like whatever the case that might be. I would say, just say, what you just said, it made me feel really uncomfortable, you know? That just didn't sit right with me. That didn't feel good. That didn't sound fair, you know? And give it a try like that, because I think sometimes we are looking for the words.
You know, I think young people, it's critical to view yourself as almost like a doctor. In other words, you know, one of the things that doctors say is they go and tell people that there's something wrong. Even though it may hurt them, in the end, hopefully they're gonna feel better and they're gonna treat other people better.
Yeah, I love that. That's a perfect analogy, and I think something that people can really understand. So many kids are awakened to where we are, and many are probably much more open to having diverse friends, to having different exposure to different kinds of cultures. How can kids wake their parents up?
Kids, if you know information, or if you see a problem with the way your parents are thinking or doing, to recognize that you probably have a better ability to change them than anyone on earth.
That's right, you do. You have the power, you hold it, you harness it, and that's exactly right. Ibram, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, hearing your perspectives. Don't forget, I also am getting my copy of Anti-Racist Baby. Can't wait to see what you're up to next, man, and we're watching. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, of course, as always.
Black Lives Matter. I'm sure you guys have been hearing that a lot lately and maybe curious or had questions on what it means. Black Lives Matter means everybody will be treated fairly. And it just means that everybody gets a fair shot at life and pursuit of their own happiness and treat it like a human being. And so as you see all these things that are happening in the world, just know that it's your parents, fighting for a better world for you guys and wanting to re-educate ourselves as well as you guys on what it means to be a good person.
In 1990, Nickelodeon ratified the first ever Kids' Bill of Rights. With the Black community still facing tremendous racism and injustice, the time is now to hear those words ring loudly again, and the Nick family is doing the honor. Take a look.
The Declaration of Kids' Rights.
You have the right to be seen,
heard, and respected
as a citizen of the world. You have the right to a world that's peaceful.
You have the right to be treated with equality,
regardless of the color of your skin.
You have the right to be protected from harm, injustice, and hatred.
You have the right to an education
that prepares you to run the world.
You have the right to your opinions and feelings,
even if others don't agree with them.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
We will stand up for them.
We will stand up for each other.
Today,
tomorrow,
and always. I went to a protest. It felt like I did something good and we're making a statement.
And we're learning about each other.
I am willing to educate myself.
Just because you haven't experienced something doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And it still needs to change. With this movement, it will change.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
That message from everyone was loud and clear, and we can never forget our rights. This has been such an incredible hour to listen, to talk, to learn, and to decide how we want to act and how we want to create the change that we want to see. You know, I'm taking all this information back. Me and my family are going to continue to have these conversations, and I'm so encouraged by all the young people that we heard from and the brilliance, the outspokenness, the desire for equality, for truth, and for togetherness. It really came through so strong. It made me feel hopeful, really, really hopeful. So thank you to everybody for sharing today, for tuning in, for being a part of this global collective in this conversation. And we don't want it to stop. That's why we have resources like Conscious Kid and other books and organizations to arm you with information so that you can get out there and be bold and unapologetic in stamping out racism. Go to nickhelps.com for more information. Sending you so much love.
Black Lives Matter. Because they do.
Black kids! Black kids!